Well, it's been fun. It's been good. Bill C-21 about to crack down on this channel, boy. Ho ho! So, it looks like I'm going to have to start that GoFundMe for that Trump gold card. Where should I move? Montana? I've been looking at Montana. I'm serious. I've been looking at Montana. I've been looking at Wyoming, Alaska. I'm hoping Daniel Smith can pull this referendum thing off and secede from the Confederacy. I mean, what else? What else is there to do at this point in time? This is crazy. We are screwed. There is no two ways about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. We are screwed. So I'm in the Toyota Tundra today, just in case I got to bug out. On days like this, I always drive the Toyota Tundra. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious, but in all seriousness, the guns are gone. You go on a Canadian gun website now, you know what it is? It's like 10 different variations of the SKS. It's so pathetic. It is so pathetic, man. All we can hope for is a vote of no confidence within the next 2 years. Typically, minority governments don't last that long. I think they want to stretch it out until World War III so they can give us those guns back and stick our asses in a trench. That's what's going to happen. They're going to conscript your ass for World War III. Not the people who voted for the Liberals, though. Probably not. Because they don't fit the demographic. Now, 2 months ago, I said the following. I said this. And if there's anything I hate being right about more, it's this. And nuclear annihilation. I'm happy to not be right about that. Because then who would there be to brag to, right? There'd be no internet to tweet about it to. I actually made a funny video about that once. Remember when I said Trudeau resigning would be bad for Conservatives? Well, in a few months, it will all make sense. Trudeau leaving will be the best thing that ever happened to the Liberals, and that's bad news for gun owners. Dated January 5th, 2025, in response to somebody who is celebrating the departure of Justin Trudeau. I said, wait. This is part of their plan. Don't celebrate. Back in December 16th, 2024, Melissa Lantsman was celebrating. She's an MP here in Canada. One I don't agree with about a lot of things, but she's a Conservative MP, so we at least agree on the ridiculous gun rights policies. She says, who's next? Who's next? Some big shot banker, foreign central banker, that's who's next. The Conservatives are being short-sighted, I said, cautioning them. You should never interrupt your enemy while they're making mistakes. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, this is basic shit. Pray that Trudeau remains the Liberal Party leader until election time. Hoping for his early departure could easily backfire. December 16th, 2024. What did I say on that same day? Uh-oh. Trudeau's resignation would be the worst thing to ever happen for Conservative prospects in 2025. Voters, I warn, can be fickle, and a fresh face could breathe new life into a struggling Liberal campaign. To be clear, I don't believe the Liberals can turn things around. I was a little more optimistic that morning. The afternoon was the other post. But if he steps down, it would be the only strategic move they've made in a long time, and here we are. Trump derangement syndrome prevailed, didn't it? Oh boy. Their solitary foundation of their political platform, the only thing they ran on with this elbows up bullshit, was that Trump is a bad man and we need to rally around the flag, and that is what galvanized the Liberal voting base out of fear that somehow a guy with his nice South American immigrant wife, a blue-collar guy who isn't awkward around brown people when he smokes the shisha with them, unlike Mark Carney and Mr. Blackface. Yeah, that guy is the one that we have to fear. Now, is Pierre pandering to the establishment in the ways that he has to get elected? Absolutely he is. Is it largely a uniparty system, for the most part, that essentially are acting in the interests of the corporations and the deep state establishment that we have here in Canada like they do in the United States? Absolutely, that is true. but he was going to repeal the gun laws. He was going to give us back our guns. And quite frankly, that's all I care about. Sure, tax me a bit less. That's even secondary to me. I understand how important the gun thing is as a prepper, okay? Because they take that and then it's all downhill. If they can take away your right to self-preserve, it's all downhill. Nothing stands in between them at that point. And remember the world that we're going into. I got a little bit of news to share with you today if we have time. I got a chat with Brian Berletic in an hour here, so hope I can get through this quickly. Now, I also said that the trade war was something that the Liberals wanted. And that is when they started trending upwards. When Trump's inflammatory rhetoric about 51st state bullshit only helped Carney get elected. And maybe he wants him to get elected because he knows he's a pushover. Or maybe the allegiance between the UK and the United States runs deeper than some people think. I almost suspect it does, because the relationship with Starmer and Trump appears to be very amicable, unusually so in light of the fact that they differ so much or at least they claim to, on the Ukrainian situation. But isn't it funny how a central banker who's somewhat adjacent to Ghislaine Maxwell, I hear, or Ghislaine Maxwell, always mispronounce her name. It was just one picture though, right? Central banker of the Bank of England, not Canada, the Bank of England. They have gold in England. Did you know that? You know who got rid of all of our gold? The same prime minister whose economic policies were dictated by the guy who just came from the Bank of England, where they arbitraged the most gold in the world next to New York, next to the COMEX. Isn't that funny? Oh boy. And why? Why did they elect this guy? Really? I mean, think about it. Blue collar, immigrant wife, everything that the left claims to be about, right? Pierre embodies in many ways. The fear of simply being associated with Donald Trump, even though he outright rejected any affiliation with, even if he did though, that shouldn't have been something, in a sane society. That shouldn't have been anything that compelled people to vote in the other direction. I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? But that's how strong and irrational the fears are here in Canada. That's all it took to galvanize the Liberal base and to swing the election completely was Donald Trump derangement syndrome and the associationship between Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump, which makes no sense whatsoever. The guy who is cut from the most, and don't take offense to this because you need to understand the context of what I'm saying it. The majority of people who will vote for Liberal will be, not the majority, but a significant portion of them will be people like myself, minorities. How is it that time and time again, the people who are cut from the most white bread elitist cloth, the people who are most awkward around people like me, are the ones that we vote for? Why? I was watching 1923 the other day, and there was an interesting part in that series. It was one episode where I think the Aboriginal fellow was looking for a job, and someone told him, yeah, go work with the cowboys. They don't care what color you are. And there's truth to that, man. There's truth. When you're out there working in the sun, baling hay or whatever the his, you don't care, right? But this is something that's been lost on a lot of people. People forget that the ultra right-wing fascist government in Saskatchewan, we used to be NDP. This is the birthplace of socialized medicine. Now, you have to ask yourself, what changed? Do those values that we extolled about hard work and equality, essentially, and having, fair access to healthcare, that healthcare was a human right, did that go anywhere? No. The other side just went absolutely crazy. And it's fear. And these people are so smart at exploiting that fear. And this is the thing you need to understand is that the left is, quite frankly, they're smarter than the right. They're smarter, man. They're cut from that intellectual cloth. And they know how to play these games. And that move was 4D chess. Getting Trudeau to step down was 4D chess. In its purest form. It wasn't 5D, but it was 4D. And even the Conservative Lanceman, she couldn't see it. She was, yay, Trudeau's gone. Stupid. Stupid. They don't want you to have any freedoms. They don't want you to be self-reliant. They want you to be wholly dependent on the grid. That's why they want an increase in criminality. So they need more police. They need more social workers. They need more drug counselors. They need more nurses. So get ready for low-income housing, everybody. Yay! On military bases. That's what Trudeau was going to do. Repurpose old military bases so you can live on. How's that for foreshadowing? Fuck my life. What the fuck? You know, people are saying, you got to be optimistic. Come on, we won some ridings that we didn't have before and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even like this. I hate this anti-intellectual, tribalistic, my team lost bullshit. I hate it. But, you know, I must admit it's easier. It's easier to be this than being that ambivalent, thoughtful individual in the middle. Don't worry, I'm still that guy. But with respect to this issue, I mean, firearms rights are a red line for me. The Liberals lost the youth or are losing the youth. Conservatives predominantly vote the young people are voting Conservative, although basically the left of center, still 62% of people, if you combine all the parties, are voting left of center, but the majority vote for Conservative. That is a market that has historically been cornered by the left, the artisans. You know that old saying, if you're not liberal by 20, then you have no heart. You're not a conservative by 40, you have no brain. The Liberals have always been the party of the youth. Now it's flipping, and you could see that. There's a bunch of old women standing behind Mark Carney who are never going to be conscripted to fight in a war. And take a look at this one. This is interesting. She had this comment. I'm not going to post her name because I don't want to digitally dox her or anything. But she made this tweet here. And I'll read you the tweet. All right? You ready for this one? She's some, I don't know, paid liberal shill account, I presume. The youth vote swaying Conservative is alarming. Oh, it's alarming. Call the police. This probably isn't so much of a testament to the CPC. No, never. It's not. It has nothing to do with the fact that our party sucks ass, but instead primarily due to right-wing rhetoric being swallowed by young men from these podcasts /YouTube /streaming bros. The next government might want to address this, says liberal white woman who will never be drafted to the front fucking lines. YouTube streaming bros represent. Burning some calories today. So the guy who was a foreign banker in the country who still has their gold, who still, by extension of this governor general nonsense, essentially controls our country, is going to uphold this ordering council nonsense that was codified into Bill C-21 that's going to allow them to continuously pick away at your gun rights. You know, whenever they need a cheap political win, they're going to keep picking away. And those SKSs, they're going to get rid of them. They're going to say, oh, you can't have the modified stocks. That's what they'll probably do first, you know, to make it a little less scary. And quite frankly, the wooden stock is what you want. I mean, it creates more stability. It's got a bit more weight to it. And I regret doing that whole thing. When a person gets an SKS back in the day in Canada, you want to tweak it all out and make it look all tactical. Just leave it alone. Stripper clips, they're not the best, but they'll do the job, okay? To hunting that deer. Oh yeah, we can't forget about Bill C-18. And maybe this is what our lady friend, who will never do a day in the trenches, is talking about. Bill C-18, now known as the Online News Act, is a Canadian law that aims to establish a fair and equitable system for news businesses to negotiate agreements with large digital platforms for the sharing of news content. No, it's for the promotion of their point of view. ever since this came into play, I don't want to speculate, but the shadow banning is real. It is real. I guarantee you it's real. And it's probably going to get a lot worse. You know, fortunately, I abide by the law. I pay all my taxes. I even pay a little bit more just to be on the safe side, but that's not going to stop them. No, I stuck my neck out for you guys. For me. It wasn't for you guys. Let me walk that back. I do this for me because I don't want to lose my rights. I want to be able to live self-sufficiently without the government micromanaging every single thing I do. That's why I do this. So it is selfish. But I'm sticking my neck out there and it is what it is. So let's GoFundMe, Nate's Trump gold card. Somebody start it up. Actually, I could probably, there's cheaper ways to do it if you're from Canada, by the way. There was some shenanigans going on with the voting. You know, I'm not going to get into voter fraud stuff because, you know, once you go down that path, it just, they're going to weaponize that against you if you make those accusations. Is there a lot of very suspicious behavior? The wooden pencils, the people stuffing ballot boxes in their cars, the 91 candidates in Pierre's riding. 91. You know how many there were in the NDP Jagmeet Singh's riding? 4. How many were there in Carney's riding? 5. I'm not sure about the other 2 candidates. But in Pierre's riding, there were 91 candidates. Take a look at the ballot. That's the ballot. Mine had 3 names on it. Isn't that crazy? Now, that was probably just a bunch of, you know, Antifa hotheads trolling. Nonetheless, you know, if that's indicative of broader shenanigans, and it doesn't always have to be voter fraud. I mean, in some cases, it just can be media manipulation. It can be this inflammatory rhetoric of Donald Trump, which we have to attribute part of the blame to, okay? And I'm not sure if Trump wanted Carney in there because he could be his bitch, or he thought he's going to be able to have his way with him, or, I mean, I know he explicitly distanced himself from Pierre Poilievre in some of the comments he made, and I thought that he was doing that so that he would do Pierre a favor, right? But it's hard to say. Maybe Trump doesn't respect that kind of authority, or maybe he knows that Carney has some greater authority than Poilievre, at least at this point in time. There was also the issue of the actual riding where Pierre, I'm not going to explain the Canadian parliamentary system to my American viewers, but essentially Pierre lost his parliamentary seat. He actually lost his seat. So he's going to remain... It's confusing, and I'm not going to try to, it's been a long time since I took political science, I'm not going to try to explain how he's going to be able to maintain the party leader and maintain a presence in Parliament. There's ways that they can do it. That's all I'll say about that. But in his particular riding, the 2021 census of Carleton had it at 131,000. Now, taking away people who can't vote, this individual puts it around 80,000. Now, people who can't vote be under 18, I presume. And people who are a lesser population of people who are just infirm or whatever. And over 80,000 ballots were counted, almost 100,000 or 100% voter turnout. This makes no sense. Now, I'd have to do a double take of these numbers, but again, you know, when you got 91 people in your riding, I don't think that's what lost him it. It was the Liberal candidate. People still voted for the Liberal candidate. So it was just a low-level troll. Now, Alberta is proposing the Citizen Initiative Act. Daniel Smith, the one who was interviewed by Jordan Peterson. Okay, and Daniel Smith and Scott Moe, the premier of our province here, have put in some safeguards in place to make it very, very challenging for the RCMP to do gun confiscation in our provinces. And hopefully that's enough to stall it for the next couple of years until a vote of no confidence can be enacted and we can get rid of the Liberal minority government and hopefully repeal these bullshit laws. Hopefully it just turns out to be like the firearms long gun registry and it's just way too expensive and so it gets scrapped ultimately. But it's very hard to walk these things back once they're in motion. The government never wants to give you any of your rights back. It's very hard. It takes way more energy to fight for it to come back than it is to prevent it from being taken away in the first place. Put that on a t-shirt. The bill proposes reducing the signature threshold for a referendum petition from 20% to 10% of eligible voters, making it easier to initiate referendums, including potential sovereignty ones. So they want to have a referendum so that they can secede from the Confederacy and become like a Bloc Quebecois, but probably actually successful. Because I think there's a lot of Albertans, when they're sitting on all that oil here in Saskatchewan, potash, one of the biggest deposits of uranium in the world, all of the agriculture. I mean, we are the only two provinces that export wealth for equalization payments. And basically what that is in Canada is the provinces give each other surplus revenues in order to share the wealth. And to some extent or another, I can agree to that. We're all Canadians, right? And so the federal government has to do its thing. But when our voices aren't heard and when we're underrepresented in the polls, like I believe it was very, very close to a dead heat in terms of the popular vote. But look how many seats, the difference in seats, right? So that's what people take issue with. Anyways, I hate politics because I know it's all bullshit. But really, it's a time-buying exercise. I'm trying to be pragmatic here. We know World War III is right around the corner. If we can buy a little bit more time to make it easier to prepare for what's coming, that's all we can ask for. And if there's a party that, as part of their platform, they're going to offer that, then that's who you vote for. And that just so happens to be the Conservatives. I'm not beholden to the Conservatives. If the Liberals were saying this shit, I'd vote for them. They're not. So I'm going to have to look into strategic relocation because people's brains have completely turned off in this country. It is actually quite scary. It's really scary. Just wait, till they start rallying people into camps. It could happen. People think it can't happen. It will happen. Just the hysteria and the mental illness that underlies it all. It's terrifying. But he's smiling and he says he likes me. And he says he respects all my rights, the 50,000 identities. He must like me. He doesn't like you. That's why he's awkward around you. He can't stand you. I bet you at the end of the night, he's like that guy in the movie Elysium. He says, get me off this stinking planet. I can't stand the air down here. That's what he's like. Guaranteed. Okay, so let's talk war stuff. Shit. You guys better, crank this channel out there, man. Share these videos, like, comment, subscribe. Put on notifications because I think they're coming for me. I've been able to kind of stay under the radar in that B level, a B grade influencer. You don't want to get to A grade unless you're ready for a fight. Hopefully I can maintain that position. Okay, so Pakistan's information minister has said the following. And I reported this yesterday, but now they've doubled down and they've moved the timeline up. Pakistan has credible intelligence that India intends to launch a military strike within the next 24 to 36 hours, using the Pahalgam incident as a false pretext. Any act of aggression will be met with a direct response. Pakistan says it shot down an Indian spy drone in Kashmir, according to Bloomberg. We're seeing intense armed clashes between Indian and Pakistani forces along the line of control in the Kashmir region for the fifth straight day. India has rapidly deployed high-frequency jamming systems to disrupt signals from the global navigation satellite system, including GPS, GLONASS, and Baidu. These systems aim to degrade Pakistan's situational awareness, navigation, and precision-guided munitions capabilities, okay? Preemptive strikes. Pakistani media is urging the government to immediately launch preemptive strikes in India. And Modi is giving the army freedom to respond to Kashmir carnage. According to the media, the Indian leader has authorized the military to decide the mode and timing of any armed response to Pakistan. If you don't know anything about these two countries, just know that they're sitting on a hell of a lot of nukes. And there's going to be spillover. A lot of people think it should have happened a long time ago. But there was a rapprochement. But now you have a situation where you got J.D. Vance and his Indian wife, which appears to me to be, it's just kind of strange how that worked out, isn't it? I mean, I think there was a reason why he was picked, if you know what I mean, right? Because that's like an intermarriage. That's like a state-ordained intermarriage, kind of like what they did in the old days where royalty, married each other, knowing that they're going to go to war with China right away, and they need the younger Indian demographic to do all the heavy lifting and to basically become industrialized for cheap labor now that China is out of the picture. And until automation can come around, of course. And now India is likely going to be baited into this war, and a wedge is going to be driven in between them and BRICS. Of course, Russia, China, members of BRICS. Russia's going to try to play it neutral to the best of its capability, but is it going to be enough to keep India in BRICS? India still needs that Russian crude. Are they going to get it? Are they going to be able to play both sides of the fence? The Russians are fairly phlegmatic about these particular issues. They're going to do what makes monetary sense. But there can be spillover effects with Iran, and this really is the bridge between East and West, if you think about it. We have the war that's about to set off in the East. We have the war in the Middle East, and then we have the war in Eastern Europe. And the bridge between some of that anyways is India and Pakistan, right? So India is going to have to take a side, and it looks like the dowry is fairly enticing, we will say. Okay, Kaliningrad threats. According to Nikolai Patrushev, who is the head of the Naval Collegium, very close to President Putin, so if he says something, you know he means business. For the second year in a row, NATO is conducting the largest exercises in recent decades near our borders, and this is to do with Kaliningrad. Remember when I said that they would try to move on Kaliningrad and Russia might just let it go, even though this is a staging ground and is strategically instrumental in fighting Europe in a nuclear war, but they might let it go? It's like cutting off one of your extremities to save the whole body if they had to. Well, here's what they're saying now. They're practicing scenarios of offensive actions over a large area. Remember, what was it called? The big one, that big Steadfast Defender exercises that took place with over 100,000 troops back in 2024, early 2024, when they were first talking about the troop deployments of NATO countries into Ukraine. And nobody believed that was a thing at the time when we were talking about it. But here we go. From Vilnius to Odessa, the seizure of the Kaliningrad region, blocking shipping in the Baltic and Black Seas, and preemptive strikes on the permanent basis of Russian nuclear deterrent forces, he said. So they're getting ready to try to take Kaliningrad because they know it's an exclave, and there is a land bridge which is basically regulated by the Baltic states that goes from Belarus to Kaliningrad through the Suwalki corridor. So are they getting ready to, or is this a threat, a veiled threat to Putin? Like, if you continue in Ukraine, we're going to take Kaliningrad. And is Putin going to declare nuclear war over that? I don't know. I mean, it's a warm water port in the Baltic Sea, that part of it. They're going to need that. Now, Zelensky has made some very strong threats on Victory Day. Remember yesterday I was telling you the language was getting a lot more aggressive when he claimed responsibility for the assassination of the Russian general in Russia? He actually claimed responsibility for it. Well, here's what he says about Russian Victory Day. Right now, they're worried their parade might not happen. And they're right to be worried. But they should be really worried about is that this war is still ongoing. They must end this war, he claims. So they should be worried about that parade. So is Ukraine, I'm thinking Iran, what am I talking about now? Is Ukraine getting ready to do something big on Victory Day in an attempt to disrupt it because they know so many world leaders are going to be there, European leaders alike. The Chinese leader is going to be there. And that might cause some of them to not want to go if the threat is real. If there is a actual, advisory notice not to travel from different countries throughout the duration of that celebration, then, that might cause people to not want to go. Russia, for the first time today, commented on Trump's Golden Dome. The Golden Dome, of course, is a new system they're proposing, kind of like the Reagan Star Wars system, that will involve a space-based component that will attempt to shoot down intercontinental ballistic missiles or other types of strategic weapons of the non-conventional sort. But Russia says that its nuclear-powered Burevestnik nuclear missile, nuclear-powered nuclear missile that can fly for, I think it's like 24 to 48 hours, just can circle around. And it's a cruise missile, right? So it's not one of those things that you would be able to detect the launch of, I presume, which is why it's such a threat, because it can just fly around up there. Now, you might notice it coming into your airspace, maybe. We can't seem to find the balloons, the big giant balloons coming into our airspace that are moving at a snail's pace. What about these cruise missiles that have nuclear weapons on them that are nuclear powered? And so this is how they would defeat a system that was tuned to defend against the Orezhnik style of weapon, the MIRVs, the ICBMs, the hypersonics. Not so much hypersonics, but, this Golden Dome, I presume, is going to try to defend against everything. But for the first time today, they actually commented on it. And that puts it in perspective for people who think that Trump and Putin are actually friends. There's a reason why Witkoff is going there. There's a reason why Putin isn't talking to Trump, because he knows that he represents the same interests that Biden did. This is not hard. And right now, as the time of making this video, there are many drones en route to Russia. So I don't doubt that they've already made it to their targets. And it's going to be a bright night in Russia, quite possibly. Remember yesterday when I was talking about how the United States relies on Chinese LNG tankers because they're the ones who make the ships and own the ships in order to ship their LNG to make their shale oil production viable at these low prices? Well, now the industry moguls are saying U.S. oil and gas industry is pushing back at new Trump admin rules requiring use of some U.S.-built ships for LNG transport. American Petroleum Institute says rule not feasible and risks harming LNG exports, per letter to the admin. So who knows if Trump is going to renege on that one as well. The power outage yesterday, there was another substation in Britain that went up in flames yesterday after the outage in Spain. But interestingly, Britain was hit by an unusual power activity hours before the Spain blackout. This is on the Telegraph, okay? The UK's grid operator is investigating unexplained shifts in electricity frequency on Sunday. And that's interesting. Has the cyber hybrid gray zone warfare already begun? All right, I got to skedaddle because I got an appointment to go to. But if you want to support the channel and you want to support Nate's attempt to emigrate out of the country, because that's what I might have to do. I don't want to leave. Canada is a great place, but I'm considering my options and dual citizenship, getting that green card. If I can't get the gold card, the green card in the very least, just having a backup plan. And Montana is appealing to me for some reason. You know, the mountains is a slightly less growing season than what we have here. You don't perhaps get as much sun. That's what's great out here. You get the solar, you get the wind. You know, you can really power stuff out here with renewables. It's actually quite viable. But something about the mountains and that fresh, you know, glacier water, the forests, you know, just the more varied terrain and the wildlife. And, you know, I feel that that's calling me. I mean, it always has been. And the acreage we have now somewhat approximates that, but not entirely. The great thing about where I live up here in Saskatchewan is land is cheap and you can get a lot of it and people leave you alone for the most part. But there's always going to be Karens everywhere. There's a Karen lurking around the corner. There's an unhappy person who just has it all, but is still unhappy and is just waiting for the world to end. Well, they've come to the right place. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.